It's -40 outside, the kind of cold that freezes your eyelashes shut in seconds. The kind that turns exposed skin white in under a minute. The kind that kills engines, shatters plastic, and stops unprepared men dead in their tracks. And this guy? He's sleeping in what is essentially a metal tube on wheels. No furnace. No propane heater running. No wood stove crackling in the corner. Just him, a lantern, and the frozen Alaskan wilderness stretching endlessly outside his window. And he's not just surviving, he's comfortable. That image right there breaks everything most people think they know about cold weather survival. Because most people assume that if you're going to sleep in the Alaskan wilderness in winter, you need a roaring heat source. You need fire. You need forced air. You need something burning. Otherwise, you're dead by morning. But what if that assumption is completely wrong? What if the smartest way to stay warm in extreme cold isn't to fight the cold at all, but to simply stop letting it reach you? That's exactly what this video is going to show you. By the end of the next few minutes, you're going to understand cold weather shelter in a way that most people, including most campers, most survivalists, and most gear obsessives, simply never figure out. You'll understand why this Quonset on wheels is one of the most thermally intelligent sleeping structures ever built for mobile winter living. You'll understand the exact layering system that keeps a man comfortable at temperatures that would hospitalize an unprepared person. And you'll understand the physics, the actual science, behind why a single lantern can make the difference between freezing and sleeping soundly under the northern lights. Let's start at the beginning. Most people look at a Quonset hut, and they see a military relic, a half-cylinder of corrugated metal. Simple, almost primitive. Something the Army used in World War II because it was cheap and fast to build. That's the reputation. And because of that reputation, most people completely overlook just how thermally brilliant the Quonset shape actually is. Here's the first thing you need to understand. Shape matters more than material when you're fighting cold. A flat roof box, the kind of shape most trailers and campers use, is a thermal nightmare. Flat surfaces radiate heat directly upward and outward. Every flat wall is a heat exchange panel, constantly pushing warmth away from the interior and into the cold air surrounding the structure. In extreme cold, a flat-walled, flat-roof box needs constant heat input just to maintain a survivable temperature. Turn off the heater for an hour, and you start to feel it. Turn it off for a night, and you're in serious trouble. The arch changes everything. An arch ceiling creates what thermal engineers call a dead air zone at the peak. Warm air rises. You learn that in school, and in an arch structure, that warm air rises into the curve and stays there. It doesn't escape as easily. It doesn't have flat surfaces to radiate off. It pools and it lingers, creating a natural thermal layer above the sleeping zone. That layer acts like a second blanket over the entire interior of the structure. Passive, free, just physics doing its job, but it gets better. The arch shape also dramatically reduces the total interior volume compared to a box of the same floor space. Less volume means less air to heat. Less air to heat means your body warmth. And we're talking about the heat generated by one single human body. Goes further, a lot further. The math here is startling when you actually run it. A human body at rest generates between 250 and 350 BTUs of heat per hour. In a large camper, that heat gets swallowed by volume. In a small, well-insulated arch, that heat accumulates. It builds. Over several hours of sleeping, a properly insulated Quonset can reach temperatures 10, 15, even 20 degrees warmer than the outside air, with zero active heating. Zero. Now look at the interior of that Quonset on wheels. Look carefully at what's covering every single surface of that arch. That silver, bubble texture material lining the entire ceiling and upper walls. That's reflective bubble foil insulation. And most people who've never worked with it drastically underestimate how effective it is. Reflective insulation works differently from traditional fiberglass bats or foam board. Traditional insulation slows conductive heat transfer, the movement of heat through solid material. Reflective insulation does something else entirely. It bounces radiant heat back toward its source. So when your body radiates warmth upward, that silver surface reflects it straight back at you. When the lantern radiates warmth outward, the walls bounce it back into the center of the space. You're essentially surrounding yourself with a thermal mirror. Heat that would otherwise disappear into the structure gets redirected back into the livable zone. Combine the arch shape with reflective insulation, and you've created something remarkable, a structure that captures, reflects, and retains body heat with extraordinary efficiency. A structure where one man, one sleeping bag, and one lantern can maintain livable warmth at temperatures most people can't even imagine. But here's where most people watching videos like this one start to lose focus, because they hear reflective insulation and they assume that's enough, that you can just line a metal shell with bubble foil, climb into any old sleeping bag, and wake up fine. That's wrong, and that mistake can kill you. The insulation is the structure's defense. What comes next is your personal defense, and your personal defense is the single most important variable in this entire equation. Let's talk about what's actually keeping this man alive while he sleeps. Look at the bed. Look at it carefully. Most people glance at it and see a guy wrapped in blankets. What they're actually looking at is a precisely engineered layering system built on decades of cold weather knowledge. Every component in that bed serves a specific thermal function. Remove any one of them, and the system degrades fast. Start at the bottom. That bed is built on a raised wooden platform, not on the floor. This is not a style choice. This is survival engineering. Cold air is dense. It sinks. The floor of any structure in extreme cold is the coldest zone in the entire interior. Even with excellent insulation below, the floor temperature in a trailer at -40 can be 30 to 40 degrees colder than the air at chest height. Sleeping on the floor in those conditions, even with good gear, is genuinely dangerous. The platform creates a thermal buffer. It puts the sleeping zone up in the warmest layer of air inside the arch, the same pooled warm air that the shape naturally collects. 3 or 4 feet elevation makes a measurable, significant difference. Now look at what he's actually sleeping in. The outer layer is a high loft down sleeping bag, not a summer bag. Not a 3-season bag. A serious, expedition-rated bag rated for extreme cold. When you're buying a sleeping bag for this kind of application, the temperature rating is not the number to focus on. Most sleeping bag temperature ratings are comfort ratings, the temperature at which an average sleeper stays comfortable. The survival rating is always listed lower, and that's the number you should treat as your minimum operating temperature. For Alaskan winter camping, you want a bag rated to at least -20 Fahrenheit for comfort. -40 if you're sleeping in the kind of exposed conditions shown in this video. But here's what most people get wrong about sleeping bags. They think the bag creates heat. It doesn't. A sleeping bag creates nothing. It only retains the heat your body generates. Which means if you climb into your sleeping bag cold, if you're already shivering, already losing core temperature, the bag struggles to build that heat back up. You have to go in warm. Move your body before sleep. Do jumping jacks. Do push-ups. Eat a high-fat meal. Your body burns fat during sleep to maintain temperature. A meal heavy in fats, nuts, peanut butter, cheese, meat, taken an hour before sleep gives your metabolic furnace the fuel it needs to keep you warm through the night. Now look at the blanket draped over that sleeping bag. The colorful striped blanket. That's a wool blanket in the classic heavyweight style. And its presence is not decorative. It's functional and critically important. Wool is the most thermally sophisticated natural fiber on the planet for cold weather applications. It insulates even when wet, a property that synthetic materials only partially replicate. It regulates temperature bidirectionally, meaning it keeps you warm when you're cold and prevents overheating when your body temperature rises. It wicks moisture away from the sleeping bag surface, reducing condensation buildup inside the bag, and it adds a second thermal layer over the sleeping bag that significantly extends the effective temperature range of the entire sleep system. The combination of platform bed, a high-rated down bag, and a heavy wool blanket creates a passive warm system that has kept men alive in Alaskan winters for generations, before propane, before catalytic heaters, before any of the technology people think they need today. This is how it was done. And it works. Now, let's talk about the lantern, because this might be the most misunderstood element in the entire setup. Most people look at that single camping lantern sitting on the nightstand and think it's there for light. It is there for light. But it's also doing something else that most people don't think about until someone explains it to them. That lantern is generating heat. A standard LED camping lantern generates almost no heat, but a propane camping lantern, or even certain battery-powered lanterns with incandescent bulbs, generates meaningful warmth in a small, well-insulated space. In a volume as compact as this Quonset trailer interior, a single propane lantern running at low output can raise the ambient temperature by 5 to 10 degrees. That doesn't sound like much, but at minus 40, 5 degrees is the difference between your sleeping bag working correctly and struggling to keep up. 5 degrees changes everything. Now, critical safety point. And this is the part of this video that could save your life if you remember nothing else. If you're using any combustion-based heat source inside an enclosed structure, any lantern, any stove, any heater that burns fuel, you need ventilation. Always. Carbon monoxide is invisible. It has no smell. It doesn't announce itself. It creeps into your bloodstream while you sleep, and you never wake up. Every year, people die in exactly this scenario. Well-insulated shelter. Combustion heat source. No ventilation. It looks like peaceful sleep, and it's fatal. The right setup is a small, deliberate crack of ventilation. Not enough to negate your insulation. Just enough to allow fresh air exchange. A 1-inch gap at the top of a window. A small vent near the ceiling. The northern lights outside those windows are not just beautiful. They're a reminder that you are in a real environment with real consequences. Respect the chemistry of combustion. Never seal yourself in with a burning fuel source without providing an escape path for the carbon monoxide it produces. Now, let's talk about condensation. Look at those windows. They're frosted. The moisture on the inside of the glass has frozen against the cold exterior surface. This is normal. This is actually a sign the system is working. The moisture you're seeing came from one source. You're breathing. A sleeping human exhales roughly 1 liter of water vapor every night. In a small, sealed space, that moisture has to go somewhere. In a well-designed system, it migrates outward toward the coldest surfaces, the windows, the lower walls, and deposits there as frost rather than soaking into your insulation. This is exactly what you want. Moisture in your insulation destroys its effectiveness. Moisture frosting onto your windows is harmless. Managing the moisture pathways in your shelter design is a detail that separates people who stay warm all night from people who wake up at 3 a.m. cold and confused. Here's something most people never think about when they picture winter camping. Wind. Temperature is dangerous. Wind is lethal. At minus 20 with no wind, an experienced, well-prepared man can function. At minus 20 with a 30-mile-per-hour wind, exposed skin freezes in under 2 minutes, and even a well-insulated shelter works twice as hard to retain warmth. Wind strips heat from surfaces at a rate that temperature alone never approaches. Wind is a true enemy of warmth in Arctic environments. This is where the wheels become one of the most important features of this entire structure. A fixed shelter is at the mercy of whatever wind direction the site delivers. You chose a location months ago, or someone chose it for you, and whatever wind the geography brings, you absorb. A mobile shelter changes the game entirely. This Quonset trailer can be repositioned in minutes. Park it broadside to prevailing wind, and the entire structure becomes a windbreak. Drive it behind a tree lean, into a natural depression, alongside a ridge, and suddenly the wind problem largely disappears. The ability to move is the ability to choose your microclimate. That mobility is worth more than almost any piece of gear you could add to a fixed shelter. Look at the trailer setup visible through those windows. Heavy-duty off-road tires. Chains on the hitch. A diamond plate steel entry floor. This is not a summer trailer modified for winter. This was engineered for deployment in conditions that stop ordinary equipment. The tires alone represent a significant investment in the ability to reach and reposition in terrain that would swallow a standard trailer setup. But the positioning strategy goes beyond just wind. Snow accumulation, ground slope, proximity to natural shelter features, even the orientation of your windows relative to the northern lights. All of these become decisions you can make fresh every time you set up. A man with a mobile shelter isn't just camping. He's actively managing his environment rather than passively enduring it. Let's talk about what happens in your body while you sleep in the cold. Your core works constantly through the night to maintain an internal temperature of 98.6 degrees. To do that, it regulates blood flow, adjusting circulation to your extremities based on thermal conditions. In cold environments, it pulls blood toward your core organs and away from your hands, feet, and face. This is why cold sleepers wake up with numb toes, even inside a warm sleeping bag. The core made a decision to protect itself at the expense of the periphery. Your pre-sleep routine can dramatically influence how well your body manages this overnight. Warming your feet specifically before entering your sleeping bag. Using a hot water bottle, heated stones wrapped in cloth, or even just vigorous exercise immediately before getting in, primes your circulation for warm retention. Cold feet at bedtime is one of the most common reasons people sleep poorly in cold conditions. The body senses the cold signal from the feet and begins a mild vasoconstriction response that affects overall sleep quality. Warm your feet, and you sleep better, warmer, and with less metabolic energy spent on temperature maintenance. Eat fat before you sleep. Say it again because it matters. The overnight metabolic process burns fuel to generate heat. Carbohydrates burn fast and hot and are gone by midnight. Fats burn slow and steady and feed your internal furnace through the early morning hours. The coldest hours, the hours between 3 and 5 a.m. when external temperatures in Alaska hit their daily minimum and poorly prepared sleepers start to feel the cold creeping in. Hydration matters more than most people realize. Dehydrated blood is less efficient at transporting heat from your core to your extremities. Drink water before sleep. Not coffee, not alcohol. Alcohol is a notorious liar in cold environments, creating a sensation of warmth by dilating surface blood vessels while actually accelerating core heat loss. Water, plain, adequate, hydrating water. Your circulatory system will repay you with noticeably better warmth retention through the night. There's something no one talks about in cold weather survival content, and it might be the most underrated factor in the entire equation. Psychological warmth. Look at those windows. Through the frost, through the condensation, through the darkness of the Alaskan winter, green light dances across the sky. The northern lights, aurora borealis, one of the most breathtaking phenomena on the surface of this planet, visible from the bed of a warm, well-built mobile shelter to a man who chose this life deliberately and built the tools to live it. There's a measurable physiological response to beauty, to awe, to the perception that where you are is exactly where you should be. Cortisol drops, breathing slows, core temperature regulation improves with reduced stress load. The man in that sleeping bag is not just surviving the cold. He is sleeping better than most people in heated homes because he is precisely where he wants to be, watching something most humans will never see in their lifetimes, in a structure he understands completely and trusts absolutely. That trust matters. Anxiety burns energy. Fear of the cold is metabolically expensive. A man who knows his shelter, who has tested his sleep system, who understands exactly why each layer of his setup works, that man sleeps deeper, warmer, and safer than a man who is mentally bracing against the cold all night. Knowledge is thermal protection. Understanding your system is part of the system. Let's go through the complete checklist one final time, because this is what you actually need to remember. Build small. The Quonset arch manages airflow and retains passive heat better than any box-shaped alternative. Line every surface with reflective bubble foil insulation. Reflect the heat back into space rather than letting it disappear into the structure. Sleep on a raised platform, never on the floor. The floor is the coldest zone in any cold weather shelter, and sleeping on it defeats every other precaution you take. Use a sleeping bag rated for your minimum expected temperature. Not your average temperature, your minimum. Layer a heavy wool blanket over the sleeping bag. Eat fat before you sleep. Warm your feet before you get in. Drink water, not alcohol. If you use any combustion heat source, maintain ventilation. Always. No exception, no shortcut, no just this once. Position your shelter to block wind. Use mobility as a tool. And finally, respect the environment enough to learn it, prepare for it, and build something worthy of it. This is not about being tough. Toughness without knowledge is how people freeze to death 50 feet from a perfectly survivable situation. This is about being smart, about understanding the physics, the biology, the engineering, and the judgment that allows a prepared man to sleep comfortably under the northern lights at minus 40 degrees with nothing but a lantern, a wool blanket, and a structure that works with the laws of nature instead of fighting against them. The cold doesn't care how tough you are, but it deeply respects preparation. Build right, layer right, sleep well, and don't freeze.